Hello, everybody. Welcome into Lower League America from Compass Football. The boys are back. Jason Davis and Nipun Chopra from SockTakes.com. First of all, hello, Nipun. How are you?
Hi, Jason. Pleasure to chat with you. I hope you had a fun Thanksgiving, and we are ready to talk soccer.
We are ready to talk about soccer. No soccer on the field in the lower divisions at the moment, but plenty happening off the field. Today's big topic is going to be Louisville City. We're going to get to that. I think first we got to do the traditional Nipun Chopra shout out, always shouting out some entity from the lower divisions of American soccer. What you got today, Nipun?
This is my first shout out to a PDL team, at least as far as I can remember, Reading United in Reading, Pennsylvania. I did a thing called a merch day where everyone shared a bunch of merch, and you retweeted it, Jason. That was very nice of you. And this is one of the 6 or 7 things I bought that day. And Reading United. I love this logo, actually. So you should check out this T-shirt. It's only like $20.
I can't believe you're going to be the one to make me correct you.
Wait,
that I'm going to have to correctly. You said Reading United of the what?
Of PDL.
What is that called now?
Too. I'm sorry. I'm a stickler for old school stuff. I still call Kolkata Calcutta, so that helps.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, keep me up to speed on those changes as well.
I'm sure a lot of people
Obviously,
get that reference.
we're talking about USL Championship today. I mean, we got to make sure that we're properly framed up. We do want to hit on a couple of things happening in the lower divisions of American soccer that aren't related directly to Louisville City today, although one of them is sort of tangentially, and that's UPSL and the Players Union that just launched recognition by
USL.
the league.
Let me correct you that time, not UPSL.
Did I say UPSL? Yeah, see, that's because I'm thinking about some other things happening in UPSL. Yes, USL Championship now has a Players Union. Tommy Heinemann's involved, a couple of other players. Give me some background here, Nipun.
The background here, Jason, is this is something that a lot of us who have been reporting and a lot of the players have wanted for a long time. There have been issues with player payments in both the NASL as well as the USL. In the case of NASL, of course, it was teams folding, players losing jobs, players not getting paid, and players losing their jobs according to a troublesome clause called Clause 12B. In the case of USL, Jason, it has been an issue of wages that have been lower than those in NASL. And the other issue has been some anecdotal moments where players have been treated very unfairly. For example, most recently was the case of Tommy Heinemann and FC Cincinnati. And that case, from my sources, has galvanized this movement and created an immediacy to make sure that the union was finalized. And here we are, and it's a moment to celebrate.
Yeah, in terms of Tommy Heinemann and the dispute with FC Cincinnati, signs a contract. There's a contested medical. Looking for a physical that the club says he failed. Tommy says he didn't, and regardless, there's a contract on the table. And Tommy didn't have anybody to advocate for him. In fact, the MLS Players Union kind of had to stump up and just say, we're supporting Tommy, even though that's not their job to get involved in a legal battle with FC Cincinnati when that team is in USL. So this now will give those USL players some background or some backing when it comes to dealing with management. And there are a couple other things. I mean, there's the clock in, clock out situation we heard about with New York Red Bulls too, which I do not think is unique to them. There are obviously travel concerns, health insurance concerns, physical treatment concerns that all of these players, and they're trying to be as professional as possible. And I think what we have to be sure of is, because of the experience of American sports fans, Nipun, when it comes to labor negotiations in sports, we tend to think of these things as very big. It's lots of money changing hands. It's contested stuff. The owners are making millions. The players are trying to make millions more. Definitely not the case with the USL Championship, and yet it should help improve conditions for players. And again, I do believe push teams to be more professional.
I agree. And one final thought on this, Jason. To USL's credit, a league that I criticize very often, from everyone I've talked to, they have been very receptive to this, which is a sign of a league that recognizes it needs to improve, needs to be better, and needs to make sure that its players are truly professional entities. So,
I think
good news.
I think Alec Papadakis of the USL said something to that effect, that this is a good thing. And again, maybe that's a little bit of window dressing, a little bit of show, because you want to create that good relationship just from the get-go. But this will set up for CBA negotiations ahead of the 2020 season, not going to be in place in time for 2019 when the USL Championship hits the field. All right, a little bit of news. We've done the shout-out. Why don't we take a break? When we come back, we'll dive into it. Louisville City, one of the big clubs in USL Championship land. We'll touch on the story of Louisville City when we come back. Stay there. Back here on Lower League America from Compass Football, Jason Davis and Nipun Chopra. Let's talk about Louisville City, back-to-back USL champions, getting it done again in 2018 after making a coaching change midstream. Nipun, let's dive into the story of Louisville City before we get to the big question of the day, which is how sustainable this is for this town.
Yeah, so the backstory here, Jason, is interesting. This is not a club like Cosmos or a club that has a long history. It's a recent club that's founded in 2014. What's incredible, Jason, is that every year since then, they have got to at least the conference finals. The first season, they lost to Rochester Rhinos in the final. The following season, they lost in the Cup final to Red Bulls 2. The following season, last season, they beat Red Bulls 2 in the Cup final. And this season, they beat Phoenix in the Cup final. So a team that has tremendous on-field success. And it's important to note that they have also had tremendous off-field success.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a team that's been able to attract some pretty good players. Cameron Lancaster stands out. It injured there at the end of the run to the USL Championship of 2018. They filled in for him. Obviously, I think it's notable that, as I mentioned, that the change of coaches this year, John Hackworth stepping in to take over for James O'Connor. In the interim, about 6 weeks, the triumvirate of players who held control of that team. This has been institutionally a pretty strong team. And just quickly before we dive into the future, what's the underpinnings of Louisville City that allows them to be this successful?
A desire to plan and a desire for continuity. You look at the hires they've made with Coach Hackworth, of course, as you mentioned. But going back to James O'Connor, Jonathan Littner, who is the ex communication director. I asked him why did they reach out to James O'Connor? And some of it is serendipity. Some of the fact was that at the time they were associated with Orlando City, but they did take a chance on this unknown coach with the idea that this is someone that can build this club for the future. Some of the other hires they've made have been some of the players that they brought in the 2014-2015 season are still at the club, and that sort of continuity, I think, builds a desire to succeed, a desire to compete, and to push each other. And I think both the continuity on the pitch and off the pitch has what has catapulted Louisville City to the success story that they are.
Yeah, good support gives you the freedom to try some things maybe on the soccer side and give the soccer people the responsibility to go and make this happen. And I think it's interesting, Nipun, that this is a team that lets the head coach dictate everything. In the case of James O'Connor, he built this team. He built a championship team. Now, again, give John Hackworth credit for picking up the mantle, the baton midway this year, but no GM for this team. That's pretty interesting in modern soccer.
It is, and I can't be sure to say it's by design, but it's something that Jonathan Littner also mentioned to me, which is the fact that the lack of GM is what allowed James O'Connor to make some of the decisions that he did and bring on some of the players that he did. Like I said, at least 5 players that I can think of who were there at that moment are still at this club, and that shows that freedom, as long as it's the right person, the right coach making the decisions, if the right coach is making those decisions with that freedom, it can yield some very, very, very good results. And that's what happened.
So now we come to the big question. Again, winning on the field is one thing, and they've had pretty good attendance, a bit of a drop in 2018. I don't know if we're calling that significant or not. But this is something we talked about with FC Cincinnati as they move up to Major League Soccer. Was the carrot of MLS one of the drivers of success for FCC? How much does Louisville City suffer because MLS really isn't on their horizon? We're not talking about a major market in the United States. They should be able to support a pro soccer club, but what are the limits here? So what are the big questions, Nipun, for Louisville City in making sure they can be sustainable?
Yeah, this is the crux of our conversation, I think, Jason, is can this club be successful without an MLS carrot? And, it's something that we reached out to Mr. Brad Estes, the president of Louisville City, about, and he was very graciously, along with the communication director, Scott Stewart, got back to us with some of those answers. And the overall gist, Jason, Brad Estes believes that this club, Louisville City, can succeed without the MLS carrot. That's a takeaway message, and it's one that I think is important because, as I've said before on Twitter, here and all over the place, if there is a club in USL that can succeed without the MLS carrot, it is Louisville City. So, based on that, Jason, maybe we should talk about what it is that Mr. Estes and all of us believe are the things that are required to make Louisville City a success story without the MLS carrot.
Currently, their financial position, and we have a quote here from Brad Estes: "We lose money each year currently, but we have lost less than initially anticipated. We don't think about it as losing money, but investing in a business through the startup phase. The new stadium will make us profitable." And that we're going to come to that. That's certainly the big thing. And I think this is what's going to be the proof of concept for a lot of lower division clubs in the United States, Nipun. If you can find a way to build a stadium, and we're not talking about 25, 30,000 seats. We're talking about 10, 15, 12, maybe 18 if you're going big time in the lower divisions. That's really what this is about. Estes said, all of our planning and financial modeling is done with the assumption that we stay in USL. Again, sorry, that's a slip. Staying in USL, nothing about MLS here. The business with our own stadium is fully sustainable in this league. As long as our fans continue to support a USL side, and we believe they will, we will be sustainable and don't need to move to MLS to quote unquote make it. So here we go. And again, the position of the club is USL now, USL tomorrow, maybe USL forever, and that makes them unique in a lot of ways.
It does, and we should add that Estes doesn't rule out MLS. He says in one of his later quotes, he basically told us that he would love for Louisville City to be one of the first teams to be promoted when U.S. Soccer unleashes promotion relegation, which may
Wouldn't that be lovely?
Yeah, which may have been a bit tongue-in-cheek, but the point was they're not ruling out MLS, but their plans are concrete in the sense that they know their immediate future is USL, and that's what they want to consolidate. That's where they want to build, and that's why it makes them a unique story. And I think it's important to note that one of the things Estes said is that they are losing money, and his quote was kind of able to almost distract from that when he said we're thinking of it as a business, etc. But reading between those lines, the fact is that the club is losing money, and at some point that has to change in order for this to be sustainable. When is that point, Jason? Estes and Louisville City would argue that it is when the stadium is built. If that doesn't happen, then we revisit the conversation of whether this is sustainable without MLS. But as things stands, that's the plan. Build a stadium, eventually break even, maybe start making money, and you can sustain yourself in the USL.
Okay, I want to, and I'm not an economist, and neither of you, Professor Chopra. So I just want to make sure, though, that we leave open and we leave part of the conversation that while the club may be losing money in terms of profit versus revenue or lack of profit losses, the club's value can grow, and this is what we're seeing in Major League Soccer. Yeah, the value of the club can grow and keep those owners engaged to the point of, okay, even if we're losing $1 million here, $500,000 there, whatever those numbers are, and I'm just throwing them out, they may be able to justify continuing to put money into the product, and this is what Brad Estes is saying, because they expect that the value of the club will go up, and then one day they may be able to sell it. But the stadium is the linchpin of this. This is the center of it. What's the stadium plan in Louisville? 37-acre mixed-use development, stadium, 2 hotels, 308 rooms for those hotels, 20,000 square feet of retail space, 50,000 square feet of restaurant space, 340,000 square feet of office space. And this is not unique. This is a mixed development this is the idea that we're seeing all across America when it comes to soccer stadiums. And Nipun, what I think is interesting is when we ask for teams to, plan for a future that might not include MLS. If you want to be sustainable, you've got to have a plan that doesn't include going to the top division. What we say is you need a stadium. But the problem with that is it's hard to sell a municipality on helping on a stadium when it's not the top division. How is Louisville City counteracting that problem?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they convinced the city about the stadium, to be honest. I mean, it's something that I've wondered about, because obviously the short answer is that it's going to be mostly privately financed, right? If not all privately financed, but they are still taking loans. I believe it's a bank out of Cincinnati that is loaning them about 80% of the money. So there's some, I don't know, I guess I don't understand it as well, to be perfectly honest, but the take-home message and how Louisville City would answer that question is, it is 100% privately financed, if that's a thing.
Yes. Now, again, 100% private, and this gets into the weeds, and neither one of us writes for Field of Scheme, so we're not exactly going to be able to pull this apart and give you an expert take on the money that's moving around and being part of this. It says that you've got the sources we've got: loans plus $10 million from the owners, 100% privately financed, and again, that means loans. City and state government are helping cover the cost of the project. The Louisville Metro Council last year agreed to issue $30 million in bonds for land costs, require developers to guarantee that $130 million in private capital will be spent, and reimburse the city $14.5 million through stadium rental and other revenue. Again, you can say that the stadium is 100% privately financed or being paid for 100% with private funds, but you still need that land to change over to the ownership group for the team. And largely owners, team, they're not going out and just buying land at market rates. There's a negotiation, and there's clearly something that has to be done with the city. And this is the magic formula. Again, maybe we're not clear exactly how they convinced Louisville to do it, but part of it is that fan base.
Oh, definitely. I mean, also another important thing, and this is true for Cincinnati as well, it's a lack of other massive competitive sports, especially obviously in the case of soccer. They're the biggest game in town. But I think the popularity of the fan base, the fact that they were good tenants in Slugger Field for 4 years, I think all of that does have a knock-on effect, does have an additive effect. The fact that they are getting some media, local media coverage, I think all of those things are contributory factors as to why how Louisville City convinced the city of Louisville to give them this, not give them, but award them this land.
Yeah, Again, I don't know if this is replicable, and that's what we've talked about in the past. Is this something that can be done in other places? What is it about? We sort of open these questions up without actually having clear answers. What is it about Louisville that allowed that city to catch on, or allowed that team to catch on in the city? Maybe there was a latent soccer fan base, and certainly give the ownership credit for putting a team there and capturing enthusiasm. And even though they've been playing on a baseball venue, they've managed to make that product attractive enough, and certainly winning matters. I mean, if this team is not back-to-back champions, and even if they lost the final this year, maybe that's still good enough. They played the final at home, just not at Slugger Field, on the campus of University of Louisville. Maybe it's not this way. Maybe that winning is a major part of this formula. And how do you account for that when you launch a team? Because you can hire good coaches and you can find good players, but it still takes that little bit of extra magic to put it all together.
Yeah, and honestly, as far as, except for Louisville City, I would say a lot of the times winning teams aren't very strongly correlated with attendance, nor are losing teams strongly correlated with poor attendance, at least in the lower division. So the attendance question in terms of popularity, I think, is the cherry on the cake. But there has to be an inbuilt desire for the sport in those respective cities. That is the cake. And luckily for Indianapolis, for Indianapolis, Louisville, and Cincinnati in particular, there has been an inbuilt desire of these fans who are showing up to games regardless of how the club is doing. Luckily for Louisville City, that the cherry on that cake is on-field performances, which have been unequivocally brilliant. And I should say there was an article written by Lawrence Dockery of World Soccer Talk a couple of days ago that the headline kind of caught people by surprise. He asserted that it was the most dominant club in American soccer, and people thought he was saying that it's the best club in American soccer. He wasn't saying that it's the best club in the sense that Louisville City would beat LA Galaxy or LAFC. The point he was making was it is a consistent amount of success on the pitch that no other team in American soccer has been that consistent, and it's something to celebrate about Louisville City.
They might beat the Galaxy right now. We don't know for sure. I mean, who knows? The Galaxy are kind of a mess at the moment. I'm going to put you on the spot here as we wrap this up, Nipun. And we did not prepare this. So full disclosure, Nipun has no idea what I'm about to ask him. And I'm not talking about forget division level. Now you can throw that out the window. That's not a factor I'm concerned about here. But is there a city right now, a team, an ownership group, the combination of those things that feels like it might have a possibility of measuring up to what Louisville City has done? And you know, I say that noting that FC Cincinnati is a phenomenon that got themselves to Major League Soccer. Chattanooga FC has been a fantastic story at the amateur level, and now we're going to see a fight for that market. But is there a combination, those three things, in any city in America where you feel like, okay, this might be something like that?
I'd say their competitors in the final, Phoenix Rising, is that team. There are actually a lot of similarities between the two, Jason. Both are a heterogeneous group of 30 to 40 owners who have invested in their teams. Both are groups that have focused on on-field performance. Both have desired for continuity with their players, with their staff. I think there are a lot of similarities between Louisville City and Phoenix Rising. And we don't even have to talk about Didier Drogba. I don't think that's a relevant conversation here. I think just in terms of the ownership structure, the maturity and the professionalism of both entities in terms of their communication to directors, their presidents, all of that stuff, I think there's a lot of similarities. So I would say Phoenix Rising is the one that sticks out to me.
Top level organizations, no doubt about that. I think what's interesting when you say Phoenix Rising, the first thing that comes to my mind is that's a club that, while they certainly could be successful long-term in USL if they decide to remain committed, they have that MLS aspiration. They are aiming directly at Major League Soccer, and if that doesn't happen, you do wonder, does that ownership group break up? Do people sort of drift away? Do they stay as professional, top-level professional, acting almost like a top division club as they are now, if that doesn't happen? And who knows? I mean, Major League Soccer may never actually close the door on expansion, so it could be indefinite.
They won't close that door. It's just too much. It's worth too much money. It's worth too much money. I think it's a false scarcity model that they have to have, because that's what drives. Honestly, it may be driving the explosion of lower division soccer. It's something that I discussed a while ago in one of my articles. That false scarcity model is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it may be resulting in deaths of clubs, but on the other hand, it is leading to an explosion of clubs that are ready, that are making sure they're ready right away. So it's a double-edged sword, and it's having two bimodal effects on the lower division soccer, specifically Division II, Division III soccer.
Louisville City is a success story. They're going to get a stadium built. We'll see if that means they are sustainable at the second division level in the United States of America. This is where we wrap it up. I want to thank Nipun Chopra. As always, go to socktakes.com for everything Nipun is doing. Send us messages, hashtag LLA, or hit us up at Compass Football. Hit the Sock Takes Up Nipun as well. The Good Doctor on Twitter. Isn't that's your handle, The Good Doctor?
The Good Doctor is my handle, yeah.
All right, Nipun, thank you very much for the time as always. And we shall see everybody next week right here on Compass Football, Lower League America. See you then. Bye.